So, my name is Joel Birdie, and I'm the CEO and president of GameZebo.com, which is leading editorial and discovery, because that's the big buzzword, site for casual games across all platforms and devices. Has anyone seen a hype versus reality panel before? Okay, so this is honestly the laziest panel any moderator can do. Which is why I accepted it, because I was like, oh, I'll just print out some signs. So here's the deal. We're going to post up a bunch of different trends that are big in our industry right now. And members of the panel are going to put up a sign that says if it's real, or they're going to say whether it's hype. And then they're going to debate and explain why they said real and hype. So we've got a lot of topics to discuss. The first thing I want to do is have every member of the panel introduce themselves, and we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm the CEO of Rock You. My name is Lisa Marino, and our games are Zoo World and Gourmet Ranch.
I'm Charles Hudson, co-founder and CEO of Bionic Panda Games. We make Android games, and our first game is called Aquapets.
Hi, my name is DHARNI. I'm the co-founder of Funzio, and currently we have one game on Facebook called Crime City, soon to launch on mobile.
Hi, my name is BERNSTEIN. I'm president and CEO of Sandlot Games. We have a number of games popular on Facebook, downloadable and mobile, Cake Mania, Westward Tradewinds.
My name is Julian FARRIOR. I am the CEO and founder of Backflip Studios. We've built a number of mobile games, Ninjump, Paper Toss, Ragdoll Blaster, most recent of which is a game called Army of Darkness Defense.
Okay. So, the first topic we're going to discuss is the biggest one of them all, which is what we always discussed first, Facebook. So, Facebook is obviously huge for social games. 750 million users. I was just at 2 Facebook panels. They threw out numbers. 200 million people on mobile. Half of the users are playing games. It's huge. But a couple things happened this year that changed the equation. One is they have been taking virality out of their feeds over the past year and changing other roles daily, randomly, some would say. And 2, Facebook credits. Facebook credits are mandatory. They take a 30% cut. On the one hand, the sky hasn't fallen. Companies are still making money. For example, PopCap, they got bought by $1 billion. Obviously, social was part of that. Zynga S1, they're making lots of money. On the other hand, 30% is a big cut. And when I talk to Facebook game companies these days, what's kind of blowing my mind is people are telling me that it's not 30% loss in revenue that they've been seeing, but they're seeing upwards to 50 to 60% with Facebook credits, like numbers that make no sense, but I've heard it so many places. So, Facebook and games. Is it hype or is it the real deal?
Facebook's commitment to games.
You are not a good panelist. It's just how big is Facebook for social games this year? Is it the real deal for everyone, or is it? Yeah. I'd say credits. This is what credits out there. So, what do we got?
You might have unanimity, bro.
Okay, so this is going to be a good debate. So why does everyone on the panel think that Facebook is the real deal, aside from the fact that if anyone from Facebook is here, we don't want to get them to piss. We don't want to piss them off. Anyone? Why is Facebook still like the 800-pound gorilla?
That's where users go to play games now.
What's that?
That's where users go to play games now. So we can bitch and moan about how the cut's not right or something's wrong or the promotion. Things just keep changing for developers. But at the end of the day, if that's where players go, well, that's where we're going to be.
So totally agree that we as developers need to fish where the fish are. I think there's a couple things that make the platform more challenging. One is scale and distribution. It's absolutely more expensive to acquire users for games now than it was even 12 months ago. A lot of it is a factor of virality. A lot of it is a factor of just the increasing competition on the platform. I would say, though, as it relates to Facebook credits, For our games where we've designed the economies with credits from the ground up, we actually make more money. Zoo World 1, which had to retrofit credits, did take a pretty severe hit, but that's the difference between retrofitting an economy and designing it from the ground up. So new games, I think, are going to overcome the monetization issue pretty quickly. That still does not, though, take away the challenge on the distribution side and attaining scale for individual game developers or developers that have 1, 2, or 3 games.
Yeah, I think, and I'm strictly a mobile company, so despite Facebook not, or despite mobile not having sort of an elegant social graph type solution, I think, guys like Anil and myself find ourselves cobbling together bits of Facebook in order to sort of reach out to that broad social user base. And so we're literally bending over backwards as mobile developers, hoping that there comes an elegant solution on the mobile side, but it's still sort of the de facto solution for engaging other folks.
Yeah, I think just from our experience, so over 200 million, I think Sean Ryan just quoted that figure, plus users playing Facebook games on a monthly basis out of total 750 million users. I think one thing that people don't necessarily talk about that we are noticing is the new gamers, the guys who are starting to play the new games today on Facebook, seem to be a lot more international than what we saw, for example, when we were doing mobile games. So tier 1, the total population of gamers in tier 1 countries that are actually playing these games, the competition for them is brutal. And you better make sure that your game is retaining really well, and you better make sure it's monetizing really well to be able to sustain your game on Facebook. With that said, on iOS, even though distribution is pretty, it's weak, and you have to build your own kind of viral channels, the good news is that it's a tier 1 audience. They pay a lot more than Facebook users. So if you can nail the game, it's also a pretty good platform.
Okay, and this year I'm actually going to give my answer. So the answer is, no, I'm joking. It's a real deal. 750 million users, you can't compare. I think there's a huge challenge if you're a small guy trying to get on Facebook for the first time. But if you're about to go IPO, or if you just got acquired $5 billion, or if you've raised a lot of money, it's a good place to be. So, that's my opinion. Okay, speaking of which, Zynga. So, the only thing I could think of was just like Dave Chappelle. I'm rich. So Zynga is about to go IPO, and what was pretty cool about it is we got to see their S1, and their numbers did not disappoint. They're profitable, they're making tons of money, and compared to LinkedIn and Groupon, it's a very solid IPO business case they have. There were some things that kind of jumped out, though, that were a little bit sketchy. One is they are so dominant on Facebook for distribution. 2, there didn't seem to be a special deal with Facebook. And 3, they're very reliant on the whales, the people, who, very few people to purchase their games. Aside from that, go for that. Good for them. So, Zynga, are they hype or are they the real deal? Nice debate. I'll let the people who said hype start off.
Well, let me preface that with the fact that they're actually making a lot of money, and the S1 makes it look like a very attractive company, and it is. It's a very solid company, but it is a company that makes it hype-ish, in my humble opinion, because it is mostly on one platform, and it's a platform, as we all know, that changes very, very quickly. So, so it's great that that they were there early and they've got a good set of users, but those users are all on Facebook, and I think that's pretty scary, probably for investors as well.
So I'll take the other side of that argument. To your point, of the S1s that are filed or the companies that have gone public in the last 90 days, that's the only one that actually makes any money. Yeah. Right? I mean, Groupon it floods out of their, out of their company on a monthly basis pretty aggressively. And so you look at Zynga, and as somebody who's on Facebook as a game developer, their launch power is staggering. Yes, they're concentrated on one single platform. If you read the S1, you saw how aggressively they're looking to diversify that. They're really looking at their player base as a network of players, irrespective of where they come from. They're being aggressive on international platforms to go after a diversified user base. They are obviously getting aggressive with mobile, given Words with Friends, and then they're focusing on advertising as well. While they only did $12 million in advertising in Q1 of this year, $2 million a month roughly in brand. I've obviously dissected this S1 quite a bit. There's huge upside, and as somebody whose background is media sales, the amount of inventory that they have and the reach that they have, and as they migrate to looking at their user base much more as a network of players, there's just a lot of upside for them from a revenue perspective in my mind.
I guess I don't know whether it's hyper reality. I just think at some point numbers get really tough. And when you have that kind of penetration, if you look at the combination of the penetration that they have in terms of total users on Facebook who play social games and the per user monetization levels they see, I don't know how you move either of those levers up meaningfully.
I think they got to win mobile.
They gotta
right?
win mobile.
And they're about to have $1 billion, and so they will have a war chest to do so. And I think they have every intention to win mobile. But it's that transition I think is crucial to the real answer.
And the question to me is, if you add players that you already have from Facebook and you reacquire them on mobile, what happens? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Does that actually move the needle for them in terms of per player spend? If those people are already spending ungodly amounts of money with you on FB, is there more ceiling that you can get from that same audience if you move them to mobile?
Absolutely.
And do you think like the secret sauce that worked on Facebook, which obviously worked, do you think that's going to work on mobile?
It obviously hasn't.
Yeah.
For them.
And
I think New Toys acquisition was the smartest thing they did.
Yeah.
Now, are those same users going to play Cityville? I don't think so. Cityville was a failed launch on mobile. If you see, I think the top it reached, the highest rank it reached was number 14, which is like a shock. The game is like amazing, really well polished, but guys like these just beat them any day. So I think the real question mark for them is, can they really prove out mobile with real social games?
Okay. So follow-up question there. The IPO is obviously going to do well, right? So if you're Zynga, you raise $1 billion, what do you do with that money? What's the one thing you spend it on?
You ensure that you win mobile, and you ensure you've nailed down your player network.
I'd go buy Pocket Gems.
Yep.
You just start looking at all the platforms where people are playing, not just online and not just mobile. I mean, we say, okay, Facebook. What's after Facebook? And I think that's not the $1 billion question. That's the $100 billion question. What is after Facebook? So.
Yeah, I think for me, I would add a couple of things. So one is, of course, what we talked about, diversification of platforms, right? Mobile, you see international. But I think there's another thing which maybe we're not talking about is the recent games. So Cityville is dying. And Empires and Allies, even though they had the launch power that you talked about, if you look at the DAU over MAU ratio, which is what we care about, it was 15% right within the first month of launch. While Cityville and Farmville had 30% when they launched. So that's a clear indication that either Facebook users are getting burnt by the same core mechanics in this engine, and they need to figure out like what's the next step function jump from the same energy-based mechanic. And I think, so for me, like, it's not clear. I think they can send any game to the top at any time they want on Facebook. It's not clear that those games are actually going to work for them, where they can have a 3-month to 6-month buffer before they launch the next title. Because that's the cadence they need in order to keep winning Facebook.
And I just add one thing on mobile. It's not as if mobile games users are waiting for Zynga to bring Zynga titles to mobile. If you want to play a lot of those core genres of games, if you want a farm sim, if you want a flash sim, those already exist for people who are building games who don't care about Facebook. So that's the other reason I sometimes wonder about the mobile strategy. It's not as if users are sitting on their hands saying, I'm not going to adopt a farm, pet, zoo game until, or an Empires and Allies until Zynga offers me a competitive offering.
Also, one last thing. We've been doing multi-platform since 2002, and I can tell you that what works on one platform doesn't work on another. And just because you have one game that's super popular on a platform, doesn't mean that it's going to translate verbatim. You know, we're having trouble transitioning to Facebook as a successful downloadable and mobile company. I mean, we have, you know, it hasn't been easy because it's a different, completely different animal, and every platform is like that.
Okay. Which brings up next topic. Gaming companies going IPO. So, you've got Zynga, you know, going to try to raise $1 billion in the market. PopCap just went and got sold to EA for between $1.3 billion, depending on, you know, how they do on the metrics. You know, this is a hype versus reality thing, but it's also a question, like, you know, is casual games in a bubble right now? So the question is, I guess, you know, multi-billion-dollar valuations for casual game companies. Is this hype or is this the real deal? So everyone here who wanted to sell your company for $1 billion, you've got very few days left to do it. So why is it hype?
What? I think gaming companies go IPO is complete hype. I think saying you're going to go IPO and then being acquired for, you know, close to $1 billion is a better approach. You know, and one that's it's clearly playing.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah, that's right. No, I mean, listen, there is insane money, insane M&A activity. It is. You know, it feels, I was at Yahoo in 1998. I mean, it feels very, very similar to that. I mean, the same thing that every investment group up here says, though, is true. The revenues now substantiate much, much higher valuations. So whereas the multiples may be skewed a little, there is meaningful revenue and engagement and a number of metrics that you could actually invest in and build a company around. So I do think there's some slight differences there.
So I think I think the valuations are very high. I think Zynga's valuation is very high. If you look at PopCap, they obviously have a fantastic business, but they had a pretty rich exit. The Kabam raise, another one where you kind of were like, wow, really? Because, wow. And so there's a variety of transactions or investments that have happened in the last 6 months where, you know, I don't know that this bubble goes on much longer.
Yeah, but I mean, also, I mean, I bet you Sequoia is not disappointed with their Pocket Gems investment.
Of course not.
You know, I mean,
Absolutely
there's some crazy payoffs already. Yeah.
Airbnb is the craziest one in the Sequoia portfolio at the moment.
So how many months do we got here? We got months, we got years. When does this pop? If ever?
I would guess it's by the end of the year.
Okay.
I think platform dependency is going to be the thing that pops the bubble. So when a few key metrics are tweaked and you see numbers plummet, then that's when you start seeing investors seeing the reality of it, which is, you know, we've all built companies on markets that are very, very malleable and changeable, and not by us.
I think they're all in different innings. I think if you were trying to build a net new from scratch Facebook games company and wanted to raise money, you'd have a pretty hard time. If you were doing that on iOS, you'd have an easier time, and if you were doing it on some other to-be-determined or open web platform, maybe you get an audience. But I think if you were starting from scratch for Facebook games, unless you had a really experienced, smart team, that window it's not shut, but you can barely get your hand through it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but that said, I mean, mobile feels early,
Mobile
right?
feels very early.
It does, and there's a lot of wind behind mobile right now. But you know, who knows? I didn't call the peak in 2008 either, right?
But mobile felt early about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It always feels early.
It was early, always.
It always feels early.
It was less real. Okay, next topic. Google Plus or Google Minus? So for the first time ever, Google's actually launched a social product that doesn't suck, which is Google Plus. It looks good, it feels good, Circles is really great. Whenever I look at Circles, I'm like, this looks perfect for social games. They got 10 million users, you know, 90% men, but it's all good, within the first couple weeks, and they're just getting started. On the other hand, they have to catch up to about 750 million users that Facebook has and growing. So Google Plus for games. Is it hype or the real deal? Oh. Was that, oh, real. I just saw it upside down hype. Okay, so why is Google Plus hype? Which is ironic since you built for Android, by the way.
And I used to work at Google too. I guess it's doubly ironic. I just think Google Plus, the time spent at Google Plus is going to come at the expense of Facebook. I don't think people are going to double the amount of time they spend. I think all you're going to end up doing is moving players from Facebook games to Google games.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the same people. Maybe the take for the developer is better. Maybe it gets a little larger. I don't see it being a doubling of the opportunity.
So totally agree with that. But from a developer perspective, it gives all of us an opportunity to get some Facebook independence. That's not necessarily Apple either, right? The reality is in the gaming space, the way it's migrating over the next couple of years is it's definitely a platform play. And being on multiple platforms as a developer means I've got to give 30% of my revenue to somebody. But I'd rather have that be scalable and diversified across providers than have it all be concentrated on Facebook.
Is it bad to ask what Google Plus is, Joel?
What's that?
No, I mean, I'm sort of half kidding. It's early. And I still don't
People
totally
in Colorado haven't got the invites yet. You got to
I know it's a big deal in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead.
Google Plus has a long road ahead of it, a very long road ahead of it.
No, but I honestly, I don't know all of the facets of it yet, so I
Can
can't tell.
Can I have a question of the audience? How many people have a Gmail account? Okay, that should tell you something.
Okay, point taken. But how many people had a Gmail account and used Buzzed? I feel sorry for the one person who did. So.
I think for us, Google Plus, I mean, if they do end up having games, is interesting on multiple accounts. One is the fact that the audience that's going to come initially is going to be, hopefully, our hope is tier 1. So, you have big numbers on Facebook, but how many are actually tier 1 country users playing your games? That's one. Second, it's highly competitive on Facebook. So there's a lot of noise, and Facebook's done things to improve it and probably gone nowhere with it. But on Google, they at least have a chance to start it fresh. And I actually have a feeling like a lot of these tier 1 users might not even be familiar with Crime City. So if we have an opportunity to get into Google Plus, if they have games, I look forward to it. Absolutely. And the whole thing that it's more male-oriented, that's great because our games are a little more core than female-oriented games. So we are definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so follow-up question: if you're at Google, what do you do to make Google Plus the most rocking gaming platform alive? Like, how do you win? How do you defeat Facebook? Aside from giving 100% of your revenues to game companies, which would be nice, but it's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, I think they have a lot of the tools to transition over interesting solutions. I mean, certainly they have every significant advertiser out there to the extent that they can offer, game developers multiple revenue streams. I mean, that is very compelling, right?
And I think they've got some different channels and very compelling ones around discovery and user acquisition. Because at the end of the day, when you're in a freemium model, a very small percentage of your revenue, very small percentage of your player base generates your revenue. And so it's we call it sort of crowdsourced gameplay at RockU. And you go down this path, and being able to provide that discovery and that scale so you can find those paying users is something I think Google's very well set up to do.
If I were them, I'd make the Google Plus toolbar web scale, and then let developers publish notifications in that little red box.
I've heard that strategy before.
Actually, building on what Charles said, I think that's the advantage that they have, which is I would never think of them just as a web player, right? They're on the web, they're on mobile with Android, crazy growth, and they could be on Google TV if it ever takes off, but they're going to be on all your devices, and if that bar follows you around and never leaves you, you can't run away from it. Because you just have to use one Google service, and it'll chase you until you click on the notifications and you take an action. So it doesn't matter, like people go on saying like, oh, the retention on Google Plus might not be great. It doesn't matter. It's the recall of the brand, because it's always engaging with you, and even if you end up spending a minute or 2 minutes, you're there using their product. So.
Okay, next topic, iOS. So, that's an ecosystem that's dying, by the way. Ah, so harsh. Here's the good news. Okay, so at WWDC 2011, 200 million iOS devices out there. 65% of revenues from the top grossing games are coming from free-to-play, which up from like 40% back in January. And there's some other Flurry study that said that like 54% of all mobile game projects are now happening for iPhone and 15% for iPad. So that's all really good. If I was Apple, I'd be happy. Here are the issues. One is app discovery. As anyone who's developing for the iPhone, it's very difficult to be discovered. There's limited virality compared to what we've seen in other social networks. I mean, Apple is not a social network. And just recently, there's been the removal of offer walls, what Tapjoy is doing, which had a pretty big impact on a lot of social mobile companies, and that not only is you losing revenue from the offer walls, but also distribution. So, iOS, iPhone, iPad, and in particular, freemium social mobile games. Hype or the real deal?
Well, so
I think we all voted.
We all said real.
Really?
So I like to use an analogy around just iOS in general and tablets more broadly. So I have a 9 and a 6-year-old, and my laptop is beneath them. And so you go down that path, they only engage, they both have iPads. I know that's scary. But we play a lot of games in our house. And they only engage with the internet, and they only engage with games on those types of devices. And so you go down that path, and things like tablets and iPads and phones are the way that this generation's going to grow up. And I think it's going to be very long-lasting, and I think it's going to be, I don't want to say commoditized, but it's going to be very, very well penetrated in our universe.
So.
I mean, iOS is still an extraordinary ecosystem for developers, right? I mean, it is really easy to get a product out there to a user base that all, has credit cards and are ready to spend money. So, in full disclosure, 85% of our revenues come from iOS currently. That is declining. And I'm sure the next slide will be, we can talk about that. But, because there is, there's finally some real competition in the market, but it's still sort of the most significant platform in mobile.
Okay, there's no debate here, so it's a real deal. Well, unpredictable. Next is Android. So, Android's got good numbers too. 130 million devices activated. They're saying 500,000 devices per day, and there are about 40,000 Android apps. That was the last statistic I saw. The problem is, this is the amount of money that people are making on it, on average. No one's making money on it, based on everyone I talk to. So, Android and games. Is it hype or the real deal? As always, we start with hype first. Dan.
Well, it's been hype for us because I think we're lucky to have made that. But honestly, it's just been really tough. Discovery is very difficult. There's device fragmentation. I look at it and I see something very similar to, pre-iOS type of world, and there's definitely folks coming out from secondary markets trying to create their own Android marketplaces, and there's a reason for that. I mean, I do believe there's a market for that, but until there's a unified place where you can actually, where consumers can go on the phone and easily buy games across all devices, that's a good kind of experience for them. I don't think you're gonna see it be a serious competitor to iOS.
So why is it the real deal?
Yeah, I'll get on the other side of that. We have, so I can't argue with fragmentation at all. It's a nightmare. And I do think it's getting, well, I don't know that it's getting better, but we found ways to sort of work around that. On the revenue side, you know, our product for the most part is monetized through mobile advertising. And that's been very, very successful. And, you know, I'm not sure if that's because, obviously, of the certainly the AdMob acquisition helped, and Google knows that space very, very well, but that has been great. And I've seen the eCPMs go up relative to the same eCPMs on iOS. So I've actually been, I'm really bullish on that. Now, the bad news is mobile advertising isn't the highest, you know, ARPU way of, you know, truly extracting money from an engaged user base. But it is a start. So I'm cautiously optimistic on, you know, sort of the in-app purchase component and the premium app sales and all of the other, you know, ways to make revenue.
I think it's really hard if you're doing paid apps on the Google Android market. If you just look at the top grossing app categories, it's a bunch of free-to-play games and a handful of really expensive enterprise apps. But we do free-to-play games, and it's really, I would say, the number one conversation we have with iOS developers is it always comes down to per user. They always want to say, tell me how much you can make per user. And right now, iOS blows Android out of the water on a per user basis. But I always say, well, what about the multiplying per user times the number of users we think will be on Android? Yeah. And if you look at the Android devices that were out, I would say prior to the sort of, I don't know, prior to the Nexus S, they just weren't very compelling handsets. But now we look at all of the cool new Android phones that are coming out. If you're a consumer, there's actually decent to really good Android phone handsets you could get. Google will solve some of the billing and payments problems. We bet our whole company on Android, and we look out at sort of the 12, 24, 36 months out. I'm like, well, gee, do I really think Google's going to have the same problems with in-app billing that they have today? No. Do I think fragmentation will still be a problem? Yeah, maybe. But there's going to be so many devices out there that I don't need parity on a per-user monetization basis for Android games to be a really good business and free-to-play.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue against the numbers. It feels, I mean, it feels like the early days of iOS a little bit in that it feels a little bit like land grab. You know, and you know, distribution is going to be a problem on Android as well, and getting a sufficient number of users now at the sacrifice of some revenue is far more important, I think, in the long run.
Yep. Do you think Android's too open compared to Apple that's too closed, or it's just that no one can get it just right?
I don't think it's too open. You have too many people touching it, right? So, I mean, you have, Google's got stock Android, then every handset manufacturer seems to want to tinker and put their own custom UI. Then you've got people like Amazon who are doing their own custom stores. So there's a lot of people, and some carriers who want to do their own little mini custom store. There's just a lot of people touching the Android ecosystem and touching that build before it lands on a phone or after it lands on a phone. So I don't think that's going to change, though.
Do you think it's an issue with devices? Like, I've gone from iPhone to Android, back to iPhone, and now I'm back at iPhone. It's just, the device just rocks. I mean, it's just slicker. It feels better. It's slippery. It's more slippery for some reason. I mean, you feel like you can lick it and it'll taste good. Whereas an Android device looks like it'll taste bad. So it's a weird analogy, but anyone who has an Android versus an iPhone device, you know what I mean. So do you think it's just a question of like there is no iPhone killer? And if it is, do you guys think like that the Samsung Galaxy 2 could be? I mean, when do you think there's going to be an Android phone as lickable as an iPhone?
Well, I've got a very slick netbook that's running Windows 7, and as slick as it is, it's still running Windows 7. I mean, I love Windows and everything; it's great. But you know, let's talk about like game discovery on a Mac versus on a Windows. Mac has a unified app store across all of its devices, right? And so I think that's kind of the problem, as I see it, is that when you have something that is a completely unified platform from purchasing to hardware to software, it's very, you know, people laughed about it in the 80s. They thought, oh, that's the stupidest thing you could ever do. You know, you almost bankrupt the company. Well, not bankrupt, you can, you know, really damage the company that way. But, you know, it ended up making a lot of sense, and definitely does make a lot of sense now.
I think the question becomes, will distribution on Android eventually be able to trump monetization within the iOS ecosystem. And that's, you know, it's purely speculative at this point. But I know that, you know, even this week, a number of my conversations are around Asian distribution, and they're all Android focused for the most part. So, you know, there seems to be a lot of investment worldwide in Android.
Okay, so next. What is next? HTML5. So, HTML5 has the promise of write, run, and play anywhere. Everyone's backing it. Google, Apple, Facebook. I was just at a presentation of Facebook where they said half their site's going to be HTML5. But the problem is, it took me a while to make this slide because I was just trying to find one cool game. And this is honestly, it's called Tiny Balls. And this is the coolest HTML5 game out there right now, this game. And it was only fun for 5 minutes. So, HTML5. Is this hype or the real deal? No. Say ain't so.
I mean, I think the real answer is,
again,
around timing, right? It feels like hype right now. In 2 years, I don't know, you know, if we have the same panel, I don't know that we'll be saying the same thing. But in the short term, I doubt anyone at this table is going to be overweighting investment in HTML5. I may be wrong.
I agree with that, but I think there's a larger challenge that needs to be addressed in general. We go to HTML5, and all that does is it clouds a huge monetization issue as it relates to how the pie gets divided up between Google, Apple, and Facebook. And that is going to be, from my perspective, a complete war of attrition. Ideally, the three of them figure out how to play nice, or at least Facebook and iOS do. Not sure that that's going to happen. My perspective is the pie gets bigger for everybody, including them, if they make that work and not take it out of the developers' hides directly, meaning we pay 60% instead of 30%. But at the end of the day, growth in this space becomes challenged if those players can't figure out how to play together, and HTML5 just exacerbates that problem.
Yeah, I think, so my take on this is it's definitely, right now, it's total hype, but I think the guy that needs to figure out the HTML5 play is Facebook. They don't control anything in iOS. They don't control Android. So how are they going to get, but at the same time, they have probably the most used mobile app in the world, right, with amazing retention. So if they could use that and open up a store right there in that app for these games, then they've basically taken Apple and Google out of the equation.
But you think Apple's going to let that happen?
I don't know.
That gets back to how you're going to share the pie.
Exactly. So I think, but just in terms of strategic investment, it's Facebook. And if Facebook has enough clout with independent developers and can put enough muscle behind it, then it's possible.
And I guess I just come back to, I get what's in HTML5 for developers, but I don't get what's in it for users. Yeah. Like, if this is the best game, I mean, ultimately, like...
I mean, no, it's a good game.
But I mean, I think...
You tap the arrow and you pull back and you make a shot.
No offense to the person who made Tiny Balls.
It's actually a kid.
A kid.
Yeah.
I don't think your average consumer cares about HTML5 versus native app. They want something that feels really good on their phone. And until you can build stuff that feels really good on the phone, I think it's going to be developers and platform owners trying to rah-rah for HTML5. And we don't even have core technical components that work well in HTML5 yet for game design and game deployment. So I think we've got a ways to go.
Okay. Poor HTML5. Next, hardcore games, casual game platforms. So, I run GameZebo. We're a casual game editorial site, but the truth of the matter is we haven't reviewed a casual game in the past year because on Facebook it's all RPGs, strategy games, command-style games. On the iPhone, it's a lot of hardcore games and even downloads. If you were to look at hidden object games and look at the theme, half these games involve a severed head or you know, rusty pliers and really hardcore themes. So here we are at Casual Connect. You know, it's out with the farm and with the hardcore games. So is this the future trend? Are hardcore games going to take over these casual platforms that are the iPhone and Android and Facebook and not HTML5? Well, dude, you're blank. Okay, you first. For you, that's your punishment for like not picking something.
Well, I mean,
you've got the most hardcore game of them all.
We absolutely believe in this, right? So, but having said that, will it take over? I don't think we are in the game of playing with MAUs. We don't care whether we have 30 million, 50 million MAUs. It's more around, can we get our core audience playing our game, one game and then a series of games, and can we monetize and retain them at a rate at which these casual gamers can never do, right? So if you look at like Zynga's initial Q1, Q2 breakdowns of their daily average revenue per user, it's at 4.4 cents today, right? Which is kind of, for us, that's a joke. We cannot exist with our DAU size. We cannot exist if we monetize users at only 4 cents. So we have to be a lot better than that. So yes, this is our bread and butter, but is it going to take over? No, I think it's just one segment of the audience.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, speaking as the only 40-year-old mom on the panel, we actually have a lot of money, disposable income to spend. I probably spend $200-300 a month myself on games coming out of my own pocket. And there's a lot of engagement there for us, and there's a lot of eyeballs, and there's a lot of opportunity. I do think the more hardcore segment is emerging, and it's going to remain interesting as well, but don't underestimate the moms out there.
I think from my perspective, it's a two-part question. Is it casual game dynamics or casual game theming, or hardcore game dynamics versus hardcore game theming? For us, take a game such as Super Granny, which is a load runner game. That's a platformer. Our core demographic is 50 and 60-year-old women, and the theming is very casual. And the franchise has value because there's years and years of gameplay, or not gameplay, years and years of versions of this game that have been developed for various platforms. So I think there's two aspects to this, which is, okay, you've got hardcore themes, or you've got hardcore game dynamics, and I think as there's value to be had in both circles.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm on the other end of that sort of spectrum. I make very, very casual games, but what I have realized is within that casual segment, as if you define hardcore by sort of high engagement, the higher the engagement of those games and the harder core we're making our casual games, the higher the ARPU. So as a result, I am taking a very casual user base and trying to give them product that is higher engagement and as a result higher ARPU. And it's working.
Yep.
Well, if you look at who are your whales are hardcore game players. I mean,
Okay, next one. Casual games in the cloud. So, I just did the slide because I wanted to put a zombie with a balloon there. So, on the one hand, you can say cloud gaming is a big thing because if you look at any social game and see the infrastructure they're on, it's all in the cloud. So, this is, it's a real deal. I mean, all social games are cloud-based games. But I'm more talking about OnLive, Gakkai, all those ideas of like, instead of going to the retail store, buying a game, I'm talking about clicking on the button, game goes on your computer, and you play it online. They've been some success with hardcore games, but for the life of me, casual games for some reason are not showing up on these like, hyped, cloud-based services. So cloud-based gaming for casual games, is it hype or is it the real deal?
Hype real?
Dan, since you haven't picked anything, you get the driver's seat.
This is one of these things that today it's hype, tomorrow it's huge type of answers. That's why it's difficult to say, short term, it's hard. I mean, it's really tough to especially because, the folks that are playing the cloud-based gaming stuff are the real hardcore, early adopter type users. But, you look out 2 or 3 years from now, You know, that's what I'm talking about after Facebook. What's after Facebook? I think cloud gaming, I think, is one of those things that's going to be after Facebook.
Conceptually, I love it. And I think that where we haven't seen a compelling sort of subscription-based mobile solution, you could see it in this sort of thing.
I just think if you want to play, I don't know, I guess I'm a little more skeptical just because if you want to play those hardcore games, there's some primitives at least that I need as a player. I need a big screen, like a TV. I'm used to a more graphics intense, rich experience. For me, a lot of casual games, they work great on mobile devices. And so I don't understand what I would get as a player with a cloud-based gaming server as far as I can look at the OnLive Gaikai games and say, oh yeah, I can sort of understand why I'd want to play that through that vehicle, because that's to me more console replacement than it is anything else.
I think the instant play aspect of it is very compelling, and as people get used to higher production value games, I think instant play is going to become more and more important.
Okay, so we got a couple topics left. 10 minutes. Want to open up to the audience soon, so we're going to do some lightning round action here. So, geolocation in games. I think it's on paper the coolest thing in the entire world, but I can't get addicted to it. So, geolocation in games, hype or the real deal? Why is it real?
I'm an ad guy.
Okay. But is it fun?
What?
Is it fun?
Well, from an ad perspective, I think there's...
Okay, answer is no.
It's a great point.
From a monetization perspective, I think it's actually there's a lot of interesting executions you can put into the games that do make it fun from a brand perspective. Do I think as a core loop or a core game mechanic is it fun? No, not really.
Okay.
But for me, I'm thinking of it as a monetization tool, and yes, it's actually very compelling.
And it's hype. Why is it hype? Everyone says it's hype. Everyone else?
I mean,
Same thing.
That game is pretty cool, Shadow Cities.
Yeah, that's the first of...
Which is a cool game.
Yeah,
and
but
on paper.
I think for all LPS-based games, at least for me and sort of anecdotally, it's about gaining the critical mass. If you don't have the critical mass, I mean, how are you retaining users? How are you going to end up? I think monetization is kind of clear, but it's all about like why is somebody going to download that app and play it, and then why are they going to come back every single day to play it? And I think no one today has nailed that model.
It seems to me a lot of LBS games have the same problems that synchronous games have, which is you just need player-to-player collisions of some sort, and it's hard to get that, to Neil's point, it's hard to get that critical mass of people in the same geo. And if you expand the geo to be so large that you have collisions, then it's probably not even location-based. So.
It just feels hype-ish.
Nice, great answer.
It doesn't feel right.
It just feels that way.
Yeah,
it's dirty.
Right.
Dirty fun. Okay. Games on TV. Is the hype or the real deal? Are we going to be playing our games on TV soon? Oh, come on. This is a good question.
Poker for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't poker.
Real. Okay. Why is the hype?
Well, I think for me, it's certain genres of games will work. For example, poker, turn-based games maybe. Board games, probably all of new toys games might actually work. But games like my game, Crime City, definitely not going to TV anytime soon.
Okay, why is it real?
It's clear that TV is going to be an important distribution node, right? And as a result, I think as app developers, eventually we'll have to consider it, even though in the short term, probably not.
I've seen our games on the cable boxes, and it's painful. But I've also seen it on the big TV through an online service, and it's awesome. And it's one of those instant things. If you can just turn on the TV and start playing a game, then it's a big deal.
Okay, so I'm going to answer this. It's real. So one word, Apple. The moment Apple does to TV what they did to the phone and what they did to computers, it's game over.
Yep.
So, and this is really lightning round. Okay, downloads. I have to mention downloads. It's the hype of the real deal. Are we winning yet? Are we real? Downloads. Oh, come on, it's real.
I guess every mobile game is technically a
What do you mean by download? Like paid downloads or?
Let's skip that. Okay, gamification. I wonder what people are going to say to this one. Is there going to be anyone who says it's real?
I do.
Why is gamification real?
I mean, I think it's real in certain areas. I think education will be affected by gamification. I do think the term is hyped, and Dave made a great point. But anyway.
Okay, we got 5 minutes. So does anyone in the audience have any trends they want us to say, whether it's hype or the real deal? Go to the microphone, shout it out. Or have we covered every single part of the casual game business in less than an hour? What's that? The EU? No. Oh, Wii U. Okay, that's going. Wii U is the hype of the real deal. Ooh. The Wii U, which is another word for saying the iPad, because that's what the controller looks like. Well, what do you got? Hype?
Yeah, I don't, frankly, know enough about it.
Okay.
I think that's kind of the problem, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest.
Okay, I'll say it. It's hype. Literally, in my opinion, which I'm going to give, is that when I saw the videos of what the Wii U can do, it's really cool. But my first thought is some app developer is just going to create a game that allows the iPad to do the exact same thing with the TV, and it's going to be obsolete before it ever comes out. So I say hype. What else? Any other audience questions before we game trials? Game trial, free gameplay. Well, free games to convert to pay games. Game trials. And that could be on mobile, and that could be on
It's everywhere.
PC.
It's
Everything.
everywhere, yeah. I mean, in-app purchase is a game trial. I mean, you know. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean as well. So you can play, you know, you can play Hardwire Solitaire. Oh, yeah. That's our business, and we've been doing that for a while. And I think that same model can carry across multiple platforms as well.
And you could argue that in-app purchases, that is kind of a try and buy model on the iPhone, right?
Well, yeah, the problem with a timed try and buy is that different people play differently. And I do believe that a level lock try and buy at the end of the day, if you can figure out what that sweet point is for a game, especially if you have metrics that support that, you can figure that out pretty easily. I think that's the way to do it.
I think on mobile, the timed try and buy doesn't have the same yield as just giving it away for free with other sort of ways to monetize it. We just haven't seen the same conversion.
Yeah, I would say like actually Outfit 7 has a unique model in the sense, you know, a couple of the apps are massive reach, completely free, and then they funnel that audience into certain paid apps. So it's a little bit of a twist, a little bit different than the time-based free trial, but that's actually, I just see it as it's a big, massive free trial machine that sends users, paid users to few apps.
Cool. Okay, so I've left you guys 2 minutes to come up to the stage and talk to the panelists, so you can get a lot done there, and I'm running to another panel. So if you want to talk to me, joel@gamezebo.com. Want to talk to anyone in the panel, thank them. You've got 2 minutes. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.